thank you for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. Also to the ones who are joining virtually, welcome. Really glad to be here in this group of experts. Hope you're not too hungry, just before noon, so hope you can bear with us for the next 30 minutes while we talk about the custom attribution model that we use at TUI. First, quick question for the audience. How many of you are currently using any type of attribution model? In-house, external, no matter what? Okay, I see some hands, yeah, that's a good thing. And how many of those are using a perfect attribution model without having any disadvantages or any potential improvements? Okay, nobody. That's what I hoped, because we also don't have one. What we do have is a fully custom-made attribution model. It's transparent, no black box, it's cheap, it's fully automated, and it's platform agnostic. And this has everything been built in Google Cloud. So many fancy words. I hope this triggers the attention, and if it doesn't, we've also won an award in Belgium for the best use of performance marketing, so it must have some value. But first, who are you looking at? My name is Martijn. I'm 5 years at TUI. I'm leading the digital analytics team in Belgium and Netherlands, and my main responsibilities are tracking in general, server-side measurement, data science, conversion rate optimization, commercial insights reporting, and of course, attribution. And together with Nicolas and our teams, we have built our model. So I will now let him introduce himself and continue.
Yeah, so I'm Nicolas. I'm in charge of the, a bit too fast. I'm in charge of the digital marketing team in Belgium. So that means I'm in charge of both performance and online brand advertising. We do that on search, on programmatic, paid social, video, affiliate. I think you're all kind of aware of the online advertising channels that are out there. We do that with a team of in-house specialists. So we've built out a team of around 6 to 7 people at the moment. We're growing every year still because of the nice challenges that we have and are working on. A bit of the agenda today. So yeah, the data problem. So why is attribution important? What's the value in it, and why do we believe that it's a topic to work on? Because there's a lot of things to have just off-the-shelf solution and plug and play. Our measurement approach in general. So because attribution is just one piece of that measurement approach, we tend to look at a bit broader than that as well. Our cloud infrastructure, architecture, and Martijn will take you through that. A bit of technicalities, how does it look under the hood of that nice engine, at least that's what we believe or hope it is. And also some of the results, what has it brought to us, what has it brought our teams, what did it bring to the company? So just a bit of an agenda. So I hope that aligns with your expectations as well. I think most of you know that marketing, online marketing is becoming more and more automated, right? So there's the likes of Google who's building performance max. There's Facebook who's building advanced shopping campaigns. So you can see a trend right there. There's a lot of work, hard work that used to be done by specialists, channel specialists, marketers, adjusting CPCs, segmenting the campaigns really thoroughly and finding that sweet spots and let's say that almost craftsmanship, right? And a lot of that, and that's where we believed before as well that we could make the difference, right? That's where we as a company with a good team, some enthusiastic specialists, we could make the difference against our competition in general, right? But the algorithms are taking over and they're doing a good job, I think even a better job in driving performance. However, the downside is that all our competitors also have those engines, and we think we should differentiate, right? And then what we see there's 2 levers where we can still have a lot of influence and can take ownership on. One is creative, not the topic of the conference today, but it's an important one for us. Up until now, but it might change maybe in the next couple of months. AI or machine learning wasn't able to really crack that well and do an amazing job there. But maybe, yeah, let's talk maybe in a couple of weeks, months, years, and it might have changed. But until now, we believe we have a lot of influence there. And another one, and I think that's the topic of today, is data. So using our data to fuel those systems, to be able to steer well, right? I tend to make the analogy of a GPS, an autopilot from a plane, right? And what we see is that there's a lot of success metrics, right, coming in. So you have Google telling us with their ad stack, they say, oh, you're doing a great job, you're getting all those amazing conversions in, and you're doing a great job. At the same time, Facebook is telling us the same thing, and TikTok or Pinterest or any affiliate program, right? So there's a lot of different signals, and then we have our attribution system, which is telling us other stuff, right? And we believe that is very confusing as a team, as a person to manage those channels, but also for an algorithm in the end to be able to steer towards what we believe is value. And for us, that's the topic of today, of course, our attributed revenue. We'll go more in depth on how we do that and how we've done that. That's really important, just for us at least, to avoid confusion and have all systems, all teams align as much as possible on that success metric. I mentioned data. Data comes in many shapes, many forms. So there's business data, of course, and that's really important to fuel into the systems. There's the customer data as well, and there's our measurement data. They're all a bit interconnected, right? Because in the end, attribution will become better when we have good and solid first-party customer data to do that join setting that Glenn was referring to really understand the customer, the online customer journey really well. So we're referring to a journey. We're on a journey as well here, and some of the things are on the slides that we're working on. Not all of them are finalized, but are things in progress. The topic of today is that attributed revenue. We're working on attributed business revenue, as you can imagine. So getting our data aligned even more qualitative, so we can fuel those algorithms and make the difference in regards to our competition in the end. I told you in the intro that attribution is a part of the puzzle of our measurement strategy, but we tend to think of it as a layered approach. I think probably not a surprise to a lot of people have seen this or something like this probably, where we are using that three-layered approach, where the incrementality experiments, lift experiments, both for brand or for sales, something that we use to validate and correct, so validate our strategies and correct some of our measurement systems. So correct the attribution where possible, so where we see high incrementality but maybe low attributed conversions, we tend to correct that and say, okay, can we recalculate basically so it reflects more the incrementality. It's always a bit of trial and error, but that's what we do. Media mix modeling, hot topic, I think, especially with signal loss and tracking becoming more and more difficult. It's something that we're doing more, or trialing at least more and more. We're still in an exploratory phase there, to be fully frank and transparent. There's different approaches. We're currently using some sort of a SaaS solution there, so very light in terms of implementation, but maybe lacking a bit of fit with the brand. So that's something that we're still exploring and investigating. But the topic of today, and to go to Martijn as well, is that attribution. So as you see, that's an important one, having a multi-touch attribution system based on Markov chains, to use that basically on daily, weekly optimizations, and use that data to fuel in back into our systems, both for the algorithms but also for the team to use and leverage. But Martijn will tell you more about how did we navigate that, how did we deliver that.
Yeah, okay, so why and how did we start the attribution journey? Just like many of your businesses, we are dealing with a couple of complex factors. We have millions of anonymous users who browse to the website on a daily basis. They have different customer journeys, different preferences. They browse on any moment of the day using multiple devices. And we use several marketing channels to bring traffic to the website. Most of them cost money, so we want to know how much value we get in return. And at the end of the journey, either they make a purchase, hopefully, or they don't. If you combine those factors together, you get some chart like this, where you have your users, you have the customer journey. This customer journey consists of multiple touch points, and at the end, some make a booking and take off, in our case, or they don't. But the question is, how much value should we give to every touch point? As you can see, some touch points are closer to the end of the conversion, to the end of the journey, and close to the conversion. Others are more upper funnel, so it can get quite tricky to get a correct estimate. In the past, many businesses used last click attribution, which is probably the most famous single touch attribution model, we also used last click for quite some time, but we stepped away from it. And why did we step away? If you can take a look at this funny example, which I think some of you have personal experience with. I don't know my audience, but at least I have some experience with this a couple of times. You have a nice night out, a couple of drinks, they follow quite rapidly, and at the end, someone, always a friend, has a brilliant idea of having a kebab. The day after, you feel really like a mess. If you would trust on last click, you would blame it all on the kebab. You could leave it out of your night out, do an A/B test even, but the day after, you will always feel bad. So that's why, just like in this case, you can't blame it all on the kebab. The businesses also cannot give all the credit to the final touch point in the journey. We've done quite some research, and we've chosen the Markov model as our attribution basis. Markov attribution is a multi-touch, data-driven, algorithmic attribution model, and it can quite simply be explained by looking at this example where we have 3 customer journeys. First journey, for example, is a sequence of a meta touchpoint, Google Ads touchpoint, followed by no conversion. The second journey, DV360 meta, Google Ads conversion. And the third one, DV360 no conversion. What Markov does is it creates a visual graph like this of all the customer journeys. It calculates the probability of transitioning from one touchpoint into another touchpoint by looking at every customer journey. It then calculates the removal effect. So if you take a look at this example, it will, for example, leave out Google Ads, and it will calculate how is my probability for converting being impacted. By doing this for every touchpoint, we can get a more honest representation of the value for every touchpoint while taking into account full customer journeys, instead of looking at single touch attribution models. We ourselves are using Markov on multiple layers. First on channel level, then we go down to source medium, to campaign level, even to keyword level, so that we can tweak our advertising algorithms to the level of granularity we want. A more realistic example of a Markov model, it's not the prettiest slide, but where you have more customer journeys, you can see it can get quite complex. Imagine you have 1 million of customer journeys. It can get quite an ugly picture to show the complexity of the algorithm. So this is the basis. What have you built around it? We didn't want to start with only looking at attribution. That's why we have a high-level flowchart. We created our cloud architecture to be able to leverage multiple use cases. That's why, as the first building block, we have data, obviously. For attribution, we only use web data, but for other use cases, we use machine learning data, first-party data, yield data, and so on. Second one is the GCP architecture. I will zoom in on this part in a minute. And then the third one is the activation part. So basically, you want to activate all the data that we model. If we zoom in on the Google Cloud part, this is a list of the services that we are using in our process. For the orchestration part, we use cloud functions, cloud schedulers, cloud logging, cloud monitoring, and cloud PubSub, and also access management. Access management for privacy reasons. For the analytics part, we use BigQuery, and for storage, we obviously use cloud storage. And then at the right-hand side, for programming, we use App Engine, Compute Engine, and then for visualization, we use Looker Studio. How do these work together? And this is the more technical part of the presentation. Throughout our entire process, we use cloud logging and cloud PubSub, which can be seen at the bottom. Cloud monitoring, or cloud logging, which is the same, is used as a monitoring service to basically look at the logs if the process has issues or not. And cloud PubSub is an asynchronous messaging service that is used to communicate between the different Google Cloud services or between our different steps in the journey. Our process starts with an automated cloud function where we expect a PubSub message to start the function, and then it activates a compute engine. This compute engine is then used as a virtual machine later in the process. At the end of the process, we have another cloud function that terminates the process and also the compute engine so that we don't have any extra costs and we stay as efficient as possible. The second step of the process is when the compute engine is up and running and we have running instance, then we have an R script where the modeling happens. In the R script, we basically do two things. On the one hand side, we trigger a couple of queries to BigQuery, where we fetch our data from Google Analytics and we transform and manipulate the data into a working format for the R code. Basically, we stitch together the customer journeys in a good format that serves as an input for the Markov model. The second thing that happens in this step is the Markov modeling itself, and this entire thing is Dockerized. And Dockerized means we have a Docker image and a Docker container at runtime. What it means, for those who don't know Docker, is basically Docker is a service that packages your entire application, your program, your code, together with the dependencies so that you can run your application on any operating system, on any cloud instance without any difficulties. When the data is ready, the output data is being pushed into two phases. The first phase is, again, BigQuery and Looker Studio for reporting and analysis. And the second thing, which is probably one of the most important benefits of our process, is that we push this data into our advertising platforms to be able to do real-time adjustments in our bidding. So this is the platform-agnostic part, which is a big benefit. We use API calls for this, so basically any platform that accepts an API call can receive the data and can be used to steer on. Then a deeper look under the hood. This is the more ugly slides. At least I hope these are ugly and the previous ones weren't. Otherwise, that would be quite awkward. But you can see just a cloud function expecting a pub/sub, firing up a compute engine to be able to do some programming. Then a look to the data. Don't want to dive into the numbers itself, but we see channel group, source medium, and then we have last click versus Markov outputs. On the second screenshot, we have campaign level added. And then on this slide, we prepare our data for the API calls. The first one is for Smartly, where we just add campaign code ID. And the second one is a preparation for Google Ads, where we link back our Google Click ID to our Markov output so that we can push it into Google Ads. And now Nicolas will continue on the later part.
So where did we land? What do we get back eventually, right? And I think it's one, I'm referring back to that GPS. We have now one GPS then to avoid those confused autopilots, right? So I think different levels. We have really deep connections now into two platforms. So in the Google ads environment, it's really deep. So it's really based on the most granular level that we can start bidding or are bidding and both reporting as well, because I think it brings benefit, like I mentioned at the beginning as well, on the algorithms and having that automation in place, but also for the teams going in and also for them slicing and dicing the data and potentially still segmenting, but on a different level than before. Another one is the paid social ecosystem. One of the slides mentioned Smartly. Smartly is a solution that we use for managing our paid social activities, expanding into more platforms, but it helps us mainly into sophisticated budget allocation. So it uses attributed revenue and transactions on an ad ID level, and then gets sent back to the Smartly system, and they do what they call predictive budget allocation to take where to spend the best euro, or to optimize it so we get the most, we maximize revenue basically with the spends that we have. Now we're having that three-layered approach, and I think the good thing is, and Martijn referred to it, we have control of it. So we have control to tweak it, to correct it within that three-layered measurement, right? We can correct it with our experiments. We can connect it to any platform that is open to receive it and that we feel comfortable sending it to, of course. So that brings a lot of flexibility on our end, and having the data in real time accessible through dashboards, both for marketers, business, or any specialists on a granular level or a more higher level, depending on their needs, their wishes, and the level of detail that they need. So if you would still be doubting and be not sure, okay, how to translate this and translate it into business value, I think there's three elements to that. Time saving, because of that automation brings time saving because you don't need to align your attributed revenue and your in-channel metrics, basically. So that brings a lot of time saving already. Speed and activation, I think, doesn't need any more explanation. Bidding accuracy, that results in less media waste, and I think that's always something important so that we win some money for the businesses that we work in, for, or with. So, yeah, I hope you, or we hope you enjoyed our flight today, but open for any questions or thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I hope we're not serving the last kebab tonight. But anyways, hope you're staying tonight and are open for any more questions that come up. But first of all, any questions from the audience? I see one hand already.
So the first question, would be, how do you fix the iOS attribution problem with the cookies, if at all? Do you use incrementality or do you use something else? Or
well, it's a combination, right? And then we all work with the same limitations, I think, in this industry, both for bidding and for reporting in the end. So we have not. So the good thing is we have an app, but we're not really pushing it. So that's all already benefits. A lot of our transactions and search and browse behavior happens on our website. So that's already a better situation, I think. So we're not having a specific workflow in place to solve that. However, and I think the challenges are mainly, for example, when running in experiments, right? And then being able to measure those. So that's something that we then try to solve with the partners where we run the test with. Okay, how can we then correct potentially? Or with Facebook, it's copy. That what they say is one of the solutions. So that's what we. It's not perfect, right? I think Martijn mentioned there's so many limitations, and I think it's only a way to find the most accurate view, or as you can get, but it's never perfect and probably quite still far off as well. But just getting a bit closer is what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Can I do another one right away if there's not?
Sure, go for it.
Sorry. So the other question, the sub-question to the first one would be, do you plan on using proxy to solve the latest WebKit update? Yeah,
actually, what we see and how we're trying to approach it is just not leaning in more into our own data in the end. So it's thinking how can we more leverage our first-party data to capture, let's say, those customer journeys, and do some modeling on top of that as well. So because one is tracking issues with iOS, but there's also just not being able to track in general. So how do we model out that as well, and do a guesstimate and then correct? So how we trying to solve it or looking into solving it, because we have not, will we ever solve it? But it's just leaning into more to our first-party data, customer data through identifiers that we can capture. Consented, of course. That's how we try to do it, and probably it will get worse and worse in the future, but still trying to do an as good job as possible. But I think if there's any good ideas in the room who have solved issues like these, super happy to grab a coffee or anything else that you would fancy drinking. So yeah.
Invitation to a 5-star restaurant coming.
Any other questions?
She would have another one.
Just shoot.
But, I don't want to monopolize, but real quick, I'm sure this is pretty. I'm sure it's cost efficient, but I'm sure it's not free. What would you say? If you cannot share exactly the price you're paying, maybe you can share what you think is the, let's say, critical mass that you need to reach to make this implementation viable? Or, let's say, do you need to consider just your ad spend? Or I don't know, like the markets or the users, or what do you think you should consider before saying, okay, let's go for it and pay the money that needs to be spent?
Yeah, I think the cost for the process funnel itself is, yeah, it depends on your amount of data. But for us, it's really cheap. I don't know the exact amount for this process because we have a billing account for the cloud project, and this is one of the processes. And I think we keep being below, I think, 800 euros a month. But we have a lot of processes, so yeah, I don't know exactly how much this would cost, but this is quite cheap for us if you compare to, for example, a contract with a third party or anything. So in terms of amount of, you indeed, I don't really know. I think it depends on the data, on how much data users you have to process in BigQuery or in the other cloud instances we use.
And I think one is the processing cost, right? And I think the other one is the time cost that you have, and then it's hard to take into consideration. There is, I think, I mentioned on the slide, what is the business benefit that we got out of it? We got time saving in terms of campaign management, less media waste. So I think that's a bit the calculations that you should be. I think I would recommend doing on your end. Thinking, how does that stack up? How expensive is that campaign management currently? What's the opportunity in optimizing media wastage? And then, of course, size of the budget, of course, plays a role there, because lower budget, lower room, the absolute volume is lower than when you have bigger budgets, of course. So I think it's that technical cost where it's quite reasonable. Time, there's an investment, and I think that also there, you've seen this. It depends on your company, right? Can you do this in-house? Do you need an agency? How costly would that be? So it depends. I think it's been on stage a couple of times already. But then I think I would consider those three factors and looking into the feasibility, or if the business case would be positive for you or not. Yeah, I hope that gives you some direction.